Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, everyone. We're very much into movies, superhero type movies from time to time, like Marvel and all of that. I'm giving her a title. She could be in any one of these movies. She is the Stress Avenger. She helps us minimize stress, all of that stuff that challenges us in our lives. And today we're going to talk about sustainable lifestyle change, making those changes, making them stick so we can minimize stress and other challenges in our lives. And she's also given us the courage to shine, which is the title of her amazing book. It's so great to have her back here, our professional of the year. There's the book. Sara Regester is here. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good, Steve. I'm happy to dive into this topic.
Lots to talk about here today. I want to throw it out even before we begin. If you've got a question, you want to reach out to us, here's the phone number, 631-319-6275, 631-319-6275, or you can even email us instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. So we've talked about stress quite a few times and what can be done to minimize it. Obviously, you need to make some lifestyle changes, or at the very least, mindset changes to minimize the stress in your life. But how do we make it stick? That's what I detect from you is where we're going today. Sustainable lifestyle changes.
That's right, because, I'm a self-proclaimed stress mastery expert in my coaching practice. I help people.
Stress Avenger in my world.
Stress Avenger, yeah. Stress Avenger. I like that one. A cape, a T-shirt, something, yes.
Yeah.
And there's something about like just making change and deciding to make a change and contemplating making a change is often just stressful right there. And creating new patterns, breaking free from the old comfort zone is stressful. Going into the unknown, trying something new, stressful. So, everywhere you turn, there's the potential for stress. And that can often stop us in our tracks. And so I thought, well, today, we have a little time to talk about what really is the secret to creating sustainable lifestyle changes. Whether it's a small thing or a big thing, there's certain key steps of what are important, but also where we stop ourselves from being successful.
Ooh, so much to talk about here. Why do we derail? Let's say we've made some changes. Well, why do they sometimes not stick?
That's a big question. And one bite of an answer is how we set up our plan. That's kind of down the track. How we set up our plan into small, doable steps. And if we take a step back, it's how do we recognize the barriers that might get in our way? And if we take another step back, it's what's my resistance type? How do I sabotage myself? And it's kind of interesting that the resistant proclivity that we each have might be really new information that people haven't thought about before. But it's interesting where you can even have a little humor with yourself when you recognize, like, oh yeah, that's me. That's how I do it. Or I think there's this great idea, but somehow I'm not going forward with it. Haven't executed my plan or taken responsibility for the steps yet.
So
that's where we fail.
I've heard that many of us are addicted to suffering. We don't even know it, but we get in such a habit of feeling a certain way, or in the victim mentality, the pity party mode. Not minimizing anything here, just stating what could be facts for many. Is it possible that we could be in the saboteur mode and
definitely
and not even know it?
Yeah. And there's something about the pity. That's a loop. That's a bigger topic. But in a simple little synopsis, is that when I do the step that sabotages me, that pity party, that response I'm doing, that's not the new action I want to take, then I'm going to rescue myself so that I can feel better. And then I'm going to get the dopamine little surge of feel-good hormones that I helped myself feel better, even though now I've sabotaged myself. And it's this loop, and it can be very destructive to be caught in that pattern of repetitively choosing things that aren't really on track with what you want, but somehow how in I would say that same word, indulgent way. We kind of help ourselves, rescue ourselves to feel better, but in the end, it's not the high road. It's going to keep us stuck.
Hmm. Would you say that that's a big challenge for many of us, that we're derailing our progress and maybe not even knowing it? Like, it just, overall in what's going on here, why we don't succeed with our goals.
Exactly. And I think that it starts from the very beginning. If you break down the process of making any change, I was kind of trying to put it on a timeline of steps. So in the very beginning, you would have an idea. Something comes in your mind. You think, oh yeah, I would like to change that. Oh, I'd like to do that in my life. I'd like to be more of this or less of that. And so the contemplation happens first where you're considering it. So no change has a hope if you're not even having thoughts about it.
Say that last part again. Want to make sure that sounds pinnacle at this moment. Say it again.
Yeah. So if I don't even have it in my imagination of something I'm considering, I won't make any steps towards change. For example, let's just take smoking. So if someone never has any desire or thought or anything about stopping smoking, they're not going to be successful in any kind of plan because they're probably going to be voluntold or somehow I should for my health. It's not coming from the right place. And so there's this piece that the first step to making any change has to be in your imagination where you're contemplating, thinking about it. Is it possible? Could I do it? What would it look like? That seed is planted in your imagination and your thoughts. And then I'd say from there, you start to speak it to your friends, family, coworkers. I'd like to make this change. And so you're kind of putting it into words. And so from there, it's important that you're, not yet executing any plan. You're not successful yet. But what's important in this step for people that really want to change something is we've talked about it before, but what's in it for me in terms of if I make this change, where's the value for myself? What am I getting from it that's meaningful? That's where the juice is. And then the next step is to say, okay, if I don't make this change, where will my life be in the next 3 to 5 years? What if I don't make any change at all? What's the road I'm on? And then flipping it around, if I do make this change in 3 to 5 years, where could my life be? What's possible? And just opening up the imagination of seeing a new version of yourself with this new way.
So let me see if I got this right. In order for there to be change, I'm thinking there needs to be habits. Habits need to be adhered to create the change. We don't, as I'm understanding it, we don't do a habit unless there's a payoff. Like, for example, somebody who smokes, the payoff is they get pleasure from smoking. Maybe it relaxes them, whatever it might be. But there has to be a payoff. It sounds like in this lifestyle change, the payoff is going to be the things that you're looking at. This is going to be better in my life. 5 years, 3 years from now, that's going to be better. You're seeing the obvious payoff as opposed to, well, I just got to make a change. I'm not going to do that.
Exactly right. And here's the key in. The key in for any habit, smoking's a good example, that there's a trigger that makes you want to do the habit, and then you get the reward for, and so that's the whole internal dopamine hormone little joy factor you get. So for smoking, after being an integrative health coach, I've worked with a few smokers, and there's something about that. It might be that mindful moment, that break from their desk, that connecting with others in the smoking section, the mindful moment, the getting outside. I mean, there's a list of benefits that someone who has a habit of smoking can easily, I would say, support themselves to continue smoking. And so where the key is to look for what new habit can I plug in when the trigger happens that I still get a reward? How can I get that reward differently with a new behavior?
Does that come into play with everything that we're talking about here? We're just using smoking as an example, but does that fit everything?
It does, in the sense, and there's, we're very, we're wired for habit. That there's a part of our physiology in our nervous system, going into the science of it, that our nervous system naturally creates the patterns and loops that we can repeat things easily without having to think of every step. It'd be exhausting if we had to think, how do I brush my teeth? Let's see, I got to pick up the toothbrush.
Yep.
It's like step by step. But we can do things in, with our first attention that we don't have to think about it. And then our second attention can have our mind go in other thoughts. But so there's something that we want to think about with pattern changes, habit changes, where we want to make some sort of transformation. We have to interrupt that loop. And interrupting the loop is first recognizing what's in it for me. Why is this important to me? What is it providing for me? And what's another way I can make sure that I get what I need, but doing it in a new way. So that's mindfulness, in a sense, and tuning in.
You hear that word thrown around a lot. So I really, I wondered, how you define that word. So that is truly mindfulness.
I think anytime you can pause and have a moment, check in internally, is a mindful moment. It's paying attention on purpose in the moment without any kind of judgment around it, but just simply noticing. That's mindfulness.
I do believe we have a call. Hi, can you hear us?
Yes. Hi, I'm just calling in on if I could have a question answered on some advice I'm looking for.
Absolutely. What's your name?
My name is Brian. Basically, I tend to keep all my stress bottled up inside me until have a breakdown. How do you think I could manage this better?
Brian,
So not keep my emotions too bottled up, because I manage to stress out and break down at times.
Brian, what you're asking is a very relatable question that many people would think, yeah, I want to know what Brian needs. And so we call that holding with emotions, when you're holding it inside and it's bottling up. And so what's important, this is a key moment to think about, okay, what practice can I do? What can I do in this moment to help me just pause, take a breath into my belly, do some deep breaths, and now what do I need to let go of? Because if we keep holding it, we will have an explosion of our emotions, or we might impact our health. So you really want to be energy and motion. You want emotions to flow. So even if it's a negative emotion, one of the practices that I had talked about before is going outside, finding a tree, and I give away this angst, this judgment, this impact to this tree. I give it away now. And there's something really, really freeing about letting it go as one approach. And then the other one was what I just mentioned. You could just drop in your belly, take some nice, slow, deep breaths, name what it is, and then make a choice. What do I need to do to support myself so I can let go of this and calm my emotions and come back into my center? So it might be a cup of tea, a little walk. It could be texting a friend, having some strategies that will empower you.
Love that. And, we talk about the tree thing. You're also grounding yourself by doing that, which is very impactful.
Sure.
All right. Appreciate you calling. Thank you so much.
No problem, guys. I appreciate the advice. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, Brian.
Yeah. So can I share how I minimize stress?
Absolutely.
Can I share that with you? So I've always dealt with stress. I always let it get to me. 2016, had an ulcer. Almost, none. What am I saying? Almost. It sent me to the hospital. I didn't even know it was an ulcer. I would feel it in my stomach. I'm like, and then start to worry about it, and then it gets worse. Let it go on for months. There was a lot going on. Bought a house, renovated backyard, kids waking up early, not enough sleep, on and on and on and on and on. That was 2016. A year and a half ago, stressful situations, I felt it starting to happen again. And once I took care of things, got scoped in, and they said, well, you have some stomach issues and, such from stress. I came to the point where I just looked at everything and I just said, I'm not going to let it bother me anymore. I'm just going to, literally, and I mean this in a loving way, with responsibility, just think, I don't give a blank. I just, Why worry about things, especially the things that are out of your control? So I changed my mindset. And now when things present, I find in a very short period of time, I let it go. And not, again, with responsibility, bill comes in the mail and they say, you haven't paid in 3 months. We're going to cut off your service unless you pay. No, I'm not going to say, well, I'm just going to throw that in the file cabinet, not worry about it. But I'm not going to stress like, oh my God, I got to pay this right now. I'm like, well, I'm going to get to that. It's going on this pile over here that needs some priority and we'll take care of it. But Sara, I think all of this came from resilience, recognizing resilience. If we all look back how we powered through challenging situations, and you really take time to look at it and feel it and realize, oh, I did that. Oh, and then I got over that situation. And then I pulled that one off. How did I even do that? We all have them. We're all blanket warriors. When you really think about all the things that we've overcome that we don't give ourselves credit for, when you start doing that, it changes your look at things where, why am I getting worried about? What is stress? A lot of times fear. Well, what if this happens? What if that happens? You get to the point where it's like, I got this. It's all right. I don't need to worry about it. Again, with responsibility, you're not throwing things off to the wind and, see what happens. But the resilience thing, do you feel that many of us don't give ourselves credit for what we've accomplished or pulled off, if you will?
Absolutely. And there's something about each of us finding our way to find a more sustainable approach to our life. And in the story that you shared, there was 2 pieces, I would say, in the mind, body, spirit of it. Is there was something that you opened your mind to other options, other solutions. You didn't have like this, my way, the highway, this is how it has to be, I have to control it kind of tunnel vision approach.
Yep.
But you just sort of opened up and were receptive to, okay, what's the options here that's actually mine to do, or this reasonable response, rather than trying to control everything and thinking that it's all up to you to do everything. And another key point you shared, this a really good nugget for any of us, is when we can't change things in our life, or when there's adversity, where situations we just can't change, the one thing we can always change is our attitude, that mindset piece, and our approach. How am I going to engage with this differently, from a way that works for me? So it is about bottom lines and boundaries, but it's also about shifting your attitude when you recognize, okay, what I'm doing isn't working. I need to look at this differently. So then there's the mind opening up to see a new perspective.
Yep.
So it's all linked.
Yep, totally got you there. And to your point, I don't dispense advice. I am not a therapist. I am not a coach. I am not a counselor. I just talk to geniuses like you, and this is where I get my information from. And I saw somebody who I'm connected to at the gym. We met there, acquaintance, friendly. And, he tells me his challenges, personal life and such. And he feels like he's at the end of the road here in a different situations. And I said, you always have control. Mm-hmm. You have a choice. Don't ever forget, you have a choice. Everything we do is a choice. Yes, others may have done things that we can't control, but we can ultimately control how we react to them. And, somebody does you wrong and you're angry. Believe me, I get it. But why give them your power? Why throw it to them? Why get stressed out over situations when you have the choice? You really do. And I know it's easy. It's easier said than done. Believe me, I totally got that. But it's reality, isn't it?
It is reality. And this is where we learn more from adversity and challenges than from like taking a class or a workshop.
Real life experience.
Yeah. And I would say with gray hair here, that comes with experience of living. And that's how I wrote my book, because I thought, oh my gosh, I wiped out my health from stress so badly, so many times when I was a registered nurse. And, yet I was always able to heal. And when I had that epiphany moment, it was just like, oh my gosh, isn't it amazing I can heal myself? And how could I help other people? And that thought has continued, that now I say, how can I help other people learn these things in an earlier time frame than I learned them? Like, let me give you a
Yes.
shortcut hack to do this in your 30s or your 40s. You don't have to wait till, later in life to see all the puzzle pieces coming together.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. And that's really one of the reasons why you engage somebody like Sara or a coach because you want to fast track it. I didn't do that. I didn't even think of it. It took way longer than it should have. But again, that's the way the universe works. Everything's a lesson. And that's I think another thing maybe we should just spike in there for a moment. Seeing the opportunity, those times that used to present where there wasn't even an issue, even a money situation where, maybe this situation might change. Like, oh, well, my income's going to change, potentially change. I used to do that. And there was no reason for me to think that. It wasn't like something happened. Like when, you think, I think my boss is mad at me. I don't know how long this is going to last. And what if? Well, if that ever happens or a change happens, looking at the opportunity, let's say you have 3 jobs, one of them goes away. Okay, it's going to be a little rough there. However, now you have time to look for a situation that might be even better, seeing the opportunity in it. I don't think we look at it that way.
It's true because fear is a very strong motivator. And the fear of loss is oftentimes what keeps us stuck in these patterns or jobs or relationships that we become complacent, keep the peace at any price, putting up with it. But it's almost like what was just shared by Brian, the caller, like hunkering down inside, holding on to it is just going to cause this internal destruction. But recognizing fear, what's important is to kind of explore, well, what are the options? And I would say make the fear knowable. Like, what can I find out about it? What are some other options? And it gets back to that metaphor, when one door closes, another one opens.
Mm-hmm.
But that gap between the door I know and the door that I haven't opened yet is the scary part. And that's probably where some resilience practices and tools can help people to kind of vision what matters to me, what's important to me, what are my bottom lines, will help carry us through those times when we're, I would say, in the hallway before the new door opens.
We talk about these cliches all the time. And, many of us kind of look at it like, come on, Sara, stop. One door closes, the other one opens. Come on. Like, why you got to say that? But it's true, isn't it? It's true. And why is it true? Even in that example right there, why is that true?
Well, the expression I would say, another cliche, universe doesn't like a void. It will always bring something because everything is birthed out of the void. The void is not a nothing, it's a everything. So if you create space, there's something else that will come.
Ooh, I'm glad I asked that question. Here's an example. Let's say you're looking for the one, the partner that, and I don't want to say the perfect partner because what's perfect? Who is perfect? Nobody, no one, but the one that truly supports you. And you're going to be there for them, all of that. But you're currently in a relationship, or maybe you're dating in a few, whatever it might be. Yeah, you're not making space for someone, to your point.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you're in those situations because you're afraid to let go. Mm-hmm. There's a classic situation. Why? Fear of abandonment, loneliness, and there's many different reasons. But would you say, based on what you said, the void, that could be holding you back from a situation that supports because you're afraid to make space for the right person to come along? Is that possible?
Exactly. It's totally possible. And I would think of it in terms like, as a woman, that someone's taking up my man space, meaning the energetic space that I could make for a partner that's more aligned with my values and vision than who, this person is that might be taking that space. And for a man, it would be the woman's space, or if you're, looking for that proclivity,
Mm-hmm.
partner space, I guess. And so it's important that we do make space. And I think this is what's sort of interesting in the stress environment is that how many of us truly make space versus a lot of distraction, a lot of digital preoccupation, like the noise and the busyness, that the intentionality of creating space can be something as simple as like decluttering your home as an energetic. But what are the other ways that I can declutter my life to make more space for the good things to come in that I truly desire, that I want to dream in for myself and manifest? There needs to be the space.
I never realized that. I'm being very serious. I never thought of it that way, that the universe is looking to fill a void. So it's going to put something in there, assumably to support you. Will it ever give you something that doesn't really support you?
Well, this is I love your questions. That what we don't always recognize. Spirit, I'm laughing because spirit will always say yes and always answer our prayers. But sometimes the spirit has a sense of humor in how the prayer is answered. And so there are times when what is filled or fulfilled is actually a very important lesson or a very important opportunity to stretch and grow in some way, or to gain some more internal reflections that gain more in awareness for yourself. So you might not always recognize the benefits of what shows up in that space until you engage with it and get the lesson that helps you evolve and grow.
So is it safe to assume that you're not going to get, the universe isn't going to fill that void with something that's not going to support you? It may play around with you a little bit, but ultimately there is a reason. You may not know the reason right now. It may not be revealed for quite some time, but it's for your best. It's for your best. Is that safe to assume when it comes to the universe filling the void?
Well, I would say yes. And here's where I'm going to go a little more spiritual in my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So in this lifetime, you have a book of life. It's like Akashic Records, but it's the one for this lifetime.
Okay.
And then you have your soul, that immortal part of you that is moving towards enlightenment. And so when we're in this physical body, we don't remember our soul's journey. We don't remember there's a bigger immortal part of us that's very invested in how we're evolving and growing in this lifetime. And so sometimes we can't understand in ourselves or for another kind of what are those lessons that were penciled in for this lifetime as a vehicle for growth. And that's kind of the great question, because we don't have the memory of what is going on in the bigger realm of creation, but somehow we're the feet on the street that are, engaging with life, with our physical body, with our senses, making choices with the people, with the job. And so we're moving along the best we can, making good choices, not such good choices. And then it gets back to, recognizing, okay, I need to change this part about myself. How will I navigate this change?
So lifestyle change, ones that are sustainable. That's what we're talking about today, in making positive momentum in your life. Other tips on making those changes and making them stick.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that comes up that I find interesting is if we recognize what kind of resistor we are, that there's a pattern or proclivity to our resistance type. And if we can recognize it in ourselves, it might actually help us take responsibility and execute the action towards the change. And so there's 4 basic resistance types. And, there's light and dark with each one, but I'm going to kind of lean into how it sabotages.
Okay.
Okay, so the first type of resistance is the person that is surprised. And they're often like, what? I need to have that? That's a requirement? Or they might even go into blame. I thought you were going to take care of that. And so there's a definite type of resistance that they're not taking responsibility because they don't recognize that it was theirs to do or within their circle to take care of. That's one kind of resistance. They don't know that I even need to have this preparation, this certificate, this step, whatever it is. So that person comes unprepared. And that might look like not having a good plan, like it's too sketchy. And then another kind of resistor is the person, and this, you might know someone like this. Sometimes we don't see it in ourselves, but it's the person full of excuses. They have all the reasons why they're not doing the action. They have a reason for everything. It's, somebody else is going to take care of it, or my health is in the way, or this and that and the other. And they eventually will just quit. They just won't follow through because they are just sitting in their excuses and not taking responsibility and not executing steps. Then the other kind of resistor could look like the overachiever or the perfectionist, maybe. But this is the person that completely over prepares, and they fight the energy in the sense they're going to make it happen. They make sure they have everything ready. They're going to put way more energy into something that needs to be done. And therefore, they're never ready because they're still preparing. So they don't have the perfect plan yet.
And I could see that as leading to potentially procrastination, because they're always putting it off. I'm not ready yet. I got to tweak it up a little bit here before it's ready for prime time. So I got not ready. Ultimately, there's a reason why it's not ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the fourth kind, and I laugh at these people because I certain individuals come into mind with all of these because I teach students and I recognize in my clients when these things happen. But the fourth one is going to make it happen. No matter what the cost is, they're going to make it happen. And so these people don't recognize the carnage they leave behind them of all the people they kind of stepped on and rippled into to make it happen. So these people sometimes are very spontaneous, very magnetic. They're like, yeah, let's do it. And they don't think about like the consequences or the planning and preparation. They're just making it happen regardless of the consequences. So any of us could be any of these four types, and there's weaknesses if we recognize ourselves. And so this is what's important when we think about taking responsibility in terms of the steps and being successful to make change. Part of the internal game is, what kind of resistor am I? Where do I stop myself? Either over preparing or giving up or being surprised and unprepared or creating carnage in my path.
Interesting to look at all of these. And I'm trying to weigh the pros and the cons. Like the last one, the get it doneer, I guess you could give some credit because they're apparently getting it done. They're forging forward. We're going to get it done. Just, get out of the way. But that comes at a cost and a price potentially of others. But I guess there's collateral damage on all of these.
There are. Yeah. And I would say that if we can even have a mindful moment to take that breath, check in. We've talked about that many times, that pause, notice, choose. It's like, what am I resisting? And what I've learned about stress patterns for many, many people is underneath stress is always resistance. Not what am I stressing about? What am I resisting? That's a really key question. And then you could ask, how am I resisting? And that's where you'll see, okay, I'm procrastinating, or I'm like making excuses, or I'm coming unprepared, or I'm like stepping on everyone that it gets done. Yeah.
Can we look at the two of those? Let's go back to what were the two scenarios there? The thing that you just said, where, and I'm trying to get the reference point. You're getting it done. However, there's collateral damage. And what you just said to recognize, what was that? The two things. Yeah,
the two things was recognizing first, what am I resisting?
Yes.
What's the trigger here? And, how can I recognize the impact of what my resistance is creating? How is it stopping me? Because underneath that stress will always be resistance. What we're stressing about, 90% of the time, there's a resistance factor underneath that.
I'm going to say, without a cliche, but here it comes, easier said than done. That is that I think that's the baseline, right? The foundation for everything, figuring that out.
Well, that's why you work with a coach.
There you go. I'm serious. Because I don't know how you'd figure that out.
Well, that's my job. But I will say that in coaching, you're partnering, you're working together. It's
Sure.
never my job to tell you what to do or literally to give advice, but I can give tools, I can give teachings. There's things I can offer that help an individual create new wisdom that they can actually bring into their life to make patterns better, more productive. And then, from there, the resistance is a key factor that we want to explore for ourselves about how we each do that, because it's sneaky and it's seductive. And we might not recognize how we fool ourselves into not taking responsibility. And at the end of the day, change is not going to happen if we're not willing to take responsibility for our steps and to find the clear, simple steps to move forward, recognizing the barriers that might stop us. But the number one are the internal barriers of how our resistance will be doubt. It might be blame. It might be resistance of procrastination, all kinds of ways we do it.
So instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. This is Cammie checking in from Baldwinsville, New York, which I believe is upstate New York. We're downstate New York here. And she says, I've been doing some work on myself and heard that fear is born into us in two ways: fear of falling and fear of loud noises. The rest is learned. Do you believe that?
Cammie asked a very big question for this quick call. I'm going to answer. I'm going to say yes, in the sense that the type she's naming that we're born with is for babies. That's the fear of a tonal, physical, third dimensional fear of physical harm. We absolutely need that so we don't get hit by the bus when we're crossing the street, right?
Or
That's
evolutionary, in terms of evolution, the brontosaurus, the pterodactyl, you would hear them. So that would register as noise, right? That would register as that's a real fear. Got to do something.
Yeah. Now, the other fear that she's asking about that's learned, in a sense, is the bigger answer is what I call a spiritual or Nagual fear. This has to do with our symbols and our life experience of what we have experienced already in terms of where we've encoded pain or resistance to engaging with certain symbols or processes of life from our past experience. But there's also part of that is fear of the unknown, where we don't have any experience with it. It's not part of our symbols or past experiences that we've learned from. There's no encoded pain or trauma. And so that kind of fear is also the fear of the unknown, where we have an invitation to grow, to get out of the comfort zone and expand, take those baby steps forward to learn something new. And so there is a part where she's asking, yes, from our adverse experiences and trauma, we do encode fear. But there's another invitation of fear that's where we do acknowledge, I'm ready to heal that trauma. I'm ready to do my life differently. I'm ready to try this new career step. And then we stretch beyond our comfort zone into the unknown, that kind of fear.
So it sounds like most fear is learned.
Of the fear we recognize, the fear that we know from experiences, from image makers like the mean teacher, or the shocking things that happen when we're growing up, or the fear that we get from the collective of what's going on on social media platforms. We can get fear that we catch from other, what everyone's speaking about. In the collective can be very contagious, that kind of fear.
Well, let's look at one, fear of abandonment, right? So that comes up many times, and that can hold many of us back. Where would that come from? You would have to be a child. A situation would arise where you feel abandoned. Could be your parents split up when you were young. Could be you're 7 years old and your best friend looks at you and says, "We're not friends anymore," and walks away. I mean, we kind of laugh now at it, but when you're 7, it's the only friend I have, and then it's over. So you feel like I'm left by myself here. I don't really have any other close friends. I feel abandoned. You learn that fear. I would think that that's not going to be placed within. It's learned.
It's learned, and that would go along with the fear of betrayal, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. Those are learned in our early formative years when we are programmed as children and children up to about in our 20s, that we want to fit in, we want to feel loved, we want to be liked, we want to feel safe, we want to survive. So that's where things happen with our image makers, meaning like our parents, grandparents, teachers, uncles, aunts, friends, peer groups that create those wounding experiences that then encode that fear of abandonment, betrayal, rejection. And we take that into, like, I would say, armor ourselves to protect ourselves. And that can later really block us from our naturalness. From a place of wanting to survive and picking up unskilled behavior to feel safe, later becomes a barrier that holds us back from our true nature.
What else can you share about making those sustainable lifestyle changes?
Well, I think what's really important is once that you make a commitment to change and you feel ready to change and you're willing to take the steps, it's creating the steps that are specific, actionable, realistic, and it's important, they're really doable, that you can build on simple steps to begin with and add more steps as you go, that consistency in moving forward to the change takes practice. And many times it's really helpful to have like an accountability, whether it's an app or a visual calendar or a person or your smartwatch. Certainly visually tracking your progress really helps with consistency. So there's certain ways to tool a plan that's doable, sustainable, and that you can build on it over time to really help carry that new pattern forward and help you rewire as your new way and to erase the old way. And part of that not only was resistance, but a key factor is recognizing any barriers that might come up, whether they're internally or family, work, weather, like traveling in the summer, people are on vacation. How can I fold into my plan steps that will work even when barriers come up? I'm still able to be successful, to say yes to myself, to keep going.
When we talk about those barriers that come up, things that we resist, ultimately, stress. They all present stress. I'm trying to think of it if all of them would, but ultimately, is stress involved in most of this?
Yes, and many times the stress in this kind of a scenario is where our values are competing with each other. So if I have a plan that I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week after work, but now my coworkers have this deadline and we need to stay late to finish a project, or it's my family member's birthday and there's a family dinner, like there's times when competing priorities come up and then you're in a values conflict versus what I want to do and what I should do, and trying to discern what's my priority today, or how can I make this action happen? If not today, can I do it tomorrow? And having some contingency plans for when the values of what's important compete with each other that might stop you.
I've shared my stress story. I don't believe you've ever shared one of yours. Anything come to mind?
Stress.
Of course not. She's the stress avenger.
Right here in this book. I wrote a book about it.
Well, you know what? Maybe that even writing a book can be stressful.
It was, right? At times. Yeah, I will say, in my book, the original title of this book was called Stress Junkie, because I was so addicted to stress hormones that helped me get the juice to carry things forward, to be highly successful, very success-driven healthcare practitioner. And, there was a consequence of having no boundaries and never saying no. And I was also, from my stress and insecurity, always giving away my power, never speaking up for myself. And so it was a lifelong journey of how I danced with stress again and again and again until I figured out, okay, I need another way. And um, and so that's where I really recognized how when I'm engaging in a lifestyle that's important to me, I need to do it in a way that's sustainable to my health and my happiness. And when I found the key points of how to do that, that's really where I wanted to help others to find their tools and their practices that would help them be healthier, happier, more co-empowered relationships. Because a lot of my stress came with relationships with others personally. And so, I had a lot of health problems. And the whole mind, body, spirit approach was how I kept turning them around until I realized I think I don't want to learn from health things anymore. I want to find a new way to learn life lessons. And so that was probably my turnaround moment where I didn't have to be sick to get unstressed. Mm-hmm.
Scale of 1 to 10, 10 being stress could have really impacted your life in a very negative way. I'm talking 10 is big. It is, you're being swallowed by the stress sinkhole, if you will. Where do you think you, at the high point of stress, where do you think you were?
12. I had significant extreme health issues, and I didn't even recognize in myself how sick I was until it was an environmental medicine physician I met. I was promoting health at the time, and I was at this conference for naturopaths, and this physician came up to me and he looked at me, and then we were chatting, and he's like, it might be too late for you. You need to. And he went, and that time he went to the phone book, got this phone number, and said, you need to call this doctor. You need to get in to see him. He's an environmental medicine specialist, and he may be able to help you. And that was a real wake-up call, because when I was so sick, I was still working as a nurse, taking care of patients. And I was really hyperactive, not tired, but I was thin, pale, and couldn't focus. And I mean, there was like a whole lot of physical symptoms as well. And including latex allergy, horrible latex allergy as a nurse. I mean, that was really limiting.
That you didn't know about?
Oh, I knew I had it, but I didn't make the connection of everything. And so that's really was the start of my journey to really focus on my own healing permanently and recognize that mind, body, spirit approach. It's not just the food we eat and the supplements, it's everything else we do that brings healing. When we engage with change on every level in our life, there's going to be a different outcome. And that's what I really learned was it wasn't one thing I did, it was all the steps I took to heal. And that was a real turning point when I was fully diagnosed of how really sick I was and how many of my body systems were impacted from the stress, like leaky gut and fine motor issues and focus, concentration issues. I mean, there was a lot. And I was still running around trying to work. Yeah, no one even recognized it, not even myself. It was so overt. But
wow.
I mean, I'm on the other side of it. I had horrible asthma, just inhalers, tablets, steroids. I don't have any of it anymore. Like I totally finished.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know that helping others with stress is your life. And I knew that you had a lot of stressful situations. I never knew it was to that level. Got to be honest. I know it was up there. Didn't know that that's all you had going on. That speaks volumes in terms of what we're talking about today, and how you can minimize it and you can find sustainable ways to do that. Lifestyle changes. Isn't it amazing, Sara, when you look back now and you look back then, where you were, where you are, again, back to the cliche, you're a totally different person. Isn't it almost just remarkable how you can go from one with work and time to the other?
It is, and it's an ongoing journey. And so it's just been the latest onion layer to peel was, really dealing with my overworking issues. And, underneath that layer of overworking, overgiving has been like the latest horizon that I would say this book, really came front and center as I was writing this. It's like, oh, okay, I see it now. And so there's always more. There's always more layers, and it never stops. We're all on a journey, and there's not an end point. It's just how far do we want to go? How curious are we? How much do I want to learn? What do I want to embody in this lifetime? So it's unlimited. We only limit ourselves.
It's hard to realize that. It's hard to see that, how we're controlling our destiny. We're putting those limits on ourselves. Our potential, once you break free of the stress and the fear chains, whoa. But again, it's a journey. It's not like, you come out of the superhero phone booth and like, I'm a different person. It's always going to be that way. No, it's going to be the ebb and flow. There's always going to be, sometimes a couple of steps back, but then 5 forward. It's called life, but that's also learning how to navigate that. Step around it, move around it, almost like, I get a picture of like Karate Kid Cobra Kai where, it's like, where to go just based on experience and anticipation of what could be coming your way. Let's talk about how you can help people with everything, even we identified today. What's the starting process? Obviously reaching out to you, but where does it go from there?
Yeah. So my website is directionsforwellness.com. And I'm Sara without an H at directionsforwellness.com. And so when people go to my website, you can actually go to the contact tab, and you can email my email box, and we can set up a Zoom call, a WhatsApp call, and we just initially have a chat to see what will support you. And my initial session is always highly illuminating, transformational. It's a 90-minute one-on-one workshop diving into your patterns. And then from there, people choose to do a stress mastery coaching program with me. That's an option to do the greater, longer work. That's, a 3-month program. And my book has a lot in it, even about my clients. You can pick up a lot from this Courage to Shine, How to Feel Confident Outside Your Comfort Zone on Amazon and Audible. And so I love supporting people. I love speaking from feeling stuck to feeling free. Yeah. So there's a lot of ways that people can reach out and work with me.
And in that discovery call, that initial call to 90-minute connection, are there a lot of epiphanies? Do people often say, I didn't realize that, that's what my life was in my childhood, and that's how it connects to now. Does that come up a lot?
It does, but the focus is not so much it's like, what is your proclivity to engage with life? What are the core patterns that you do as an individual that are keeping you stuck now? And what's the opportunity to see the vision of where you can grow if you make change? And so there's very much deeply diving into your proclivity of how you get caught in the dark side of your pattern. That's illuminating. And seeing, well, this is where you need to change. And so for physical symptoms, I understand, like when you shared today, okay, well, I can see, well, this is what needed to change for you to heal from that. And so that it's all about pattern and our human being proclivity from what we're born into, that potential, and where we're growing into. And so coaching is always about your forward movement, the vision of where you want to go, more than like therapeutic conversations are digging into the past.
And many of us don't want to relive the past. We want to go back there. We just want to go forward, which is, one of the main principles of coaching. Thank you for your transparency, your vision of all of this, and deep study. And I just want to throw in there again, because I think it's impactful. You have a medical background. This isn't, and there's nothing wrong with people just getting certified for coaching. You're running layers deep here. There's a lot behind you, and as demonstrated in the book, and so much more. Directions, the number 4, wellness.com, correct? So great talking with you during these podcasts, Sara. Thank you for all the insight and
Yes.
and validation for me. Being a stress junkie, never thought I'd ever say those words, but that was the reality. it's like junk food. You thrive on it. After a while, you start thriving on stress, and you don't even know you're doing it until your body says you're not doing it.
Yeah, and I like that idea of being a stress mastery avatar.
Yes, it's who you are, and you've embraced it. And I don't know anybody else doing that. So keep doing what you're doing. We need you, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve.
Appreciate it. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.